I'm Christa Hill.
And I'm Renee Matsella.
And we are the founders of Tacit Edge, a tech education company dedicated to shifting the demographics of women and visible minorities graduating into product management at top companies around the world.
And this is our podcast, Product for Humans, where we explore the human side of product management. We'll answer all your burning questions like, what is product management? What is a product? How do you get started? And why do you belong in product management? That's right, because you belong. We hope you enjoy the show.
All right, everybody, welcome. It's Friday. You made it. It's the end of the week. And this is part of a new series of conversations with product folks, just basically sharing their experience so that we can start next week with somewhat of a plan or talk about something that's on our minds that helps prepare us for what's coming next in either our careers, our products, our businesses, whatever is on your mind. So today we are joined by Charlé West, a product manager that just recently actually graduated from our product manager professional program. Welcome, Charlé, to the Ask Us Anything edition of Friday, October 27th.
Thank you, Christa. Happy to be here. Super excited.
Awesome. So I love starting out every product manager that we interview. How did you get into product? Because no one path is the same. And as much as we'd love to say there is one gateway in, everyone has their own story. Can you share a little bit with us about how you broke into product?
Yeah, absolutely. My story was interesting. And you're absolutely right. There is no one way to product. It's very interesting. The people that often work in product are so different. So their stories are very different. But I am from South Africa. I'm not from Canada. And we moved here about 7 years ago. I started working with Shopify as a client success manager, and kind of in that space there, e-commerce, and really fell in love with just solving people's problems. And then slowly trickled into working in Calgary, instead of working too remote. And then I found myself at Athenian, which is they're a entity management software. And I studied corporate law. So I had a bit of a background with regards to how the product worked, what value it brought. And I started there in customer success. And again, falling in love with solving people's problems. But I really managed to fine tune my role to figure out what we could do to help our customers get their jobs done better, as well as bring value for the company. So I kind of found myself in this interesting space where I had a number of accounts that I managed. And I really managed to get into where we could expand, how much we could improve, where the company could see value that I was working for. And I just loved sharing it. And that was really it. I just kind of shared my wins, shared what I found, shared my insights, try to be the customer's voice a little bit more publicly. And then that slowly kind of gave me the opportunity to come into product. I had my old director, Jordan Randall. He saw a bit of an opportunity with me, and I guess saw the magic in me that I didn't even know was there. I think that's important as well. If you had asked me 3 years ago, would I be a product manager? I had no idea what that even was. So I jumped at the opportunity, and I love it. I think it's an incredible opportunity in a space to really bring so much value, and also to drive kind of career growth as well for yourself, keep things exciting. So yeah, that's kind of my little story. I know a lot of people have quite success backgrounds as well, but I do think it's important because you have that empathy piece that a lot of people don't have if they're coming in from an engineering perspective or a background that's a little bit more technical. That empathy really drives a lot. So yeah.
Awesome. So when you think about your career and where it's heading, talk to us a little bit about what brought you to education or to community, because we all face in our careers various moments where we're like, oh my gosh, I think I'm in over my head, or I'm trying to go for a promotion, or something showing up that's standing in the way. I feel like I don't really know if I'm good at this. Can you share a little bit about like how you were feeling over maybe the past year in your career and what brought you to even just meeting us or seeking education or looking for community?
Yeah, absolutely. And that story is a big one. and I apologize. I have a snow blower outside in case you guys hear that in the background. You shouldn't, but it's cold here where I am. But yeah, product is so hard. And no one tells you this, right? I listen to a lot of podcasts online. I read a lot of books. Marty Kagan's Empowered, Teresa Torres Discovery. I follow Lenny's newsletter and his podcast, and you always get these beautiful pictures and stories of people that have done so well. And it's kind of like a fast forward reel of how they've moved through their career really quickly, and you just see the highlight, right? So working for a SaaS startup is very, very difficult, not only for product managers, for the execs as well, right? You're trying to figure out your ICP. You're trying to figure out how fast can we build things? What do we need to fix? What do we need to build upon? Like markets are continuously expanding as well, especially with AI and everything that's come through. So it kind of puts you in this position where as a new PM, managing execs as well, and all the different demands that come in, you don't often know if you're doing such a great job. No one tells you that messy story. And especially as a woman as well in the space too, it's very difficult to come from a role in client success where often you are very congratulated when you do well. Publicly, you're given a lot of recognition. It's very tangible and it's seen pretty quickly when something goes well. Your retention is high. Your customers are adopting well. With product, it's different. There is very little public recognition internally for when you do well. So when you're coming from that high and now you're starting from scratch again and your skills are basically at you're at the lowest point you can get to. And as well, typical in startups, you don't really do a lot of education and product management training. You kind of don't know if you're doing okay. And it's a lot to juggle. It's a very difficult career. It's not easy. So I was at that place. I was at this place where I was doing well product wise. We were bringing a lot of value, but I wasn't sure if I myself was actually a good product manager. You kind of have these questions of, do I just know the product well? Do I just know my clients well? Like, do I actually have the skills that it takes to be a good PM anywhere else? And also, when you're kind of working in the startup that I'm into, you do a lot of things. You do a bit of marketing, you do a bit of project management. So it's very ambiguous, and it's very hard to feel like you're doing a good job in ambiguity. And that's kind of the place that I got to. I also didn't have a very good network in Calgary. I was pretty new to it. You get busy. Product management is tough. You're often working very, very late hours, so you don't often have the extra time to reach out. And that's kind of the place I got to when I reached out to Tacit Edge. So that's a little background, but yeah, hopefully it wasn't too all over the place.
Awesome. And so if you reflect back on your experience at the program you went through was 7 weeks long, and it's our product manager professional, what was the biggest kind of aha moment you had in class with your peers?
Honestly, there were a couple, but I think what stuck out to me most is I'm so used to getting formal feedback. And I will say I have a phenomenal manager where I work now. He's the director of product growth, and he's incredible. He gives really good feedback, but I think the piece that you often miss in a company is real feedback versus formal, structured internal feedback, right? Sometimes I just want to know, like, what on earth do I do from a human perspective in this situation? Like, am I crazy? Is it normal for me to feel this way? Am I actually doing a good job? It's not easy to get that internally. And I think from Tacit Edge, the perspective that we got as a team and as a class is that constant, very real feedback, which is so human and so empowering. So that I would say was the first. The second piece is just knowing that you actually are doing a really good job. That is really empowering too, because, given the situation that you're in, given the circumstances that you're in, given how your company is going different directions, there are so many different ways in which product management can kind of surface itself for you as an individual in the situation you're in. There is no one size fits all. And that was really nice to see, because with both your experience, Renee, and Krista, coming in from very different companies and very different stages of companies, it's really nice to hear where you're at right now. This is not normal. This is normal. And it's a good gauge to kind of see, okay, I can be patient with this. Okay, I need to look for a change here. I can control this area of that situation. I should maybe not overstep here. Like there are those kind of directions that you get from this kind of hands-on training that you don't get elsewhere. And also with other product management courses, I'd say the theory behind product management is really nice. It's very practical. You learn a lot of skills, but that human element is not that easy to get. And I really love that about Tacit Edge. Like you can learn all the theory in the world, and it's important to learn. But that human element was really powerful for me.
Oh, I love that because the backbone of what we do is helping you understand what to do when the framework doesn't work. I think we've all been in that meeting room where we're like, okay, we're going to do this activity. I saw this thing on a podcast, which we all do. Like it's product management is very open source. We're going on online, we're reading books, and we're just trying new things all the time to see what sticks. But if something doesn't work, sometimes we don't know why, and then we abandon it and we don't do it again, even though the value in that activity is so high, but we couldn't get past the failure and how it looked in a room when everybody was just staring at us going like, what are we doing? Yeah, right? And then you back
100%.
down and you go back to the thing that you've always done that you think
Yeah.
is going to get you to the end game. So when you talk about just like your level of confidence, if you could give yourself a rating on where you are now and the confidence and in your competence as a product manager versus where you were like say 9 weeks ago, what's been the shift for you?
Oh man, I would say probably a 9 or a 10. Imposter syndrome is huge, right? Like, and I think as well, you mentioning like your competence as a product manager, I think what's really key with Tacit Edge too, it's just that ability to know that even though I'm not as skilled as my 5 year senior, I still have the intuition and the critical thinking and that gut feeling that in this situation, what we know is probably, front facing best practice might not be the best practice. That confidence is really important because often, you think, oh, it's black and white, it's yes or no. But sometimes it's just the reassurance that the intuition that I have that this might be not be the right decision for this one specific situation, that confidence makes you feel like you're not crazy. And that helps me not have that imposter feeling because it's almost like you're afraid of what you don't know and you're not sure if that position that you've taken is the right one for that point in time. But realistically, the execs sometimes don't know, right? Like these are startups. They don't know what they're doing sometimes. Startups are often they're messy. And in the tech world too, SaaS industry, people are grabbing at things left, right, and center, right? Like AI is so prominent right now. But is that really the best decision for the business right now? Do we need to focus on this massive fancy AI, topic, or do we need to drive engagement? Or do we need to get our data more up to date? Questions like that, where you might be getting direction from higher ups saying, hey, you need to do XYZ, but just having that confidence that Tacit Edge as well is kind of echoed and taught to say it's okay to say no because you do know what you're doing. And you have been hired for a reason. You have the skills. You just need to know that right now, if you voice that, this might not be the best decision, the execs will take that away and think about it. And I like that. I think that's important. It's not, oh, you're wrong or, oh, I'm right. It's, are we sure this is the right approach? And having that as a backup it's lovely, right? You fall in love with the job again. So I feel like that piece has brought me to a 9. Whereas before, I wasn't sure if I was right or not. I wasn't sure if I could say, okay, I don't know if that is the right approach without feeling like I was saying you are wrong. Um, and there is a way to voice that, right? So
Awesome. Okay, I've got one more question for you, and then feel free, folks who have joined us live, to put questions in the chat about anything product related for any one of us, and we can take it. And we're happy to answer that for you live. But Charlé, can you talk a little bit about the power of just one-on-one coaching? Like as product managers, I think, we seek internally to find a mentor inside of our organization, and that can be incredibly powerful. But can you talk a little bit about your experience of the differences between those two things? So when you go to seek to find a professional coach in the product realm outside the organization versus doing it and finding your mentor inside the organization, what's been your experience on both of those?
Yeah, 100%. And my experience has been phenomenal, but I don't know if everyone on the call as well is aware of. There's a guy at Meta called Nikhil Singhal, and he recently did a really good podcast about career advancement. And he was saying that often PMs, there are four kind of key pieces that stop you from moving through. And the first one that he mentioned is having someone who sees the magic in you. Sometimes you are so good at what you do, but you're caught up in the day to day. You have, your very formal feedback internally. But sometimes all you need is someone who sees the potential that you have and the skills that you have and kind of gives you guidance and says, okay, you are in control of your career. You can make the best out of this not shitty situation, but situation that's very all over the place. And it just gives you that extra boost. And honestly, with coaching with Tacit Edge, I think that one piece is what has given me the best boost. It's that recognition of you have potential. We see your magic. We're gonna coach you and help you. And that first pillar is so important because sometimes you don't. Sometimes there isn't a step up. Sometimes there is no job level up, and that's okay. Sometimes you have to be patient, right? Sometimes you actually do need to hone in on your skills and you do need to do some improving from a technical perspective, right? And those are all very easy to kind of reach. But sometimes you don't have someone who sees your magic. Sometimes people are so busy in the company running around trying to kind of solve every problem and answer every question and meet every revenue target that you feel like you are just a yes person. And that piece, I would say, is what stuck out most to me. That coaching piece to say, we do see that you have this potential, and this is how you're going to get there, is really empowering. Because as PMs, the reason why we're good at what we do is um, we make the best out of what we've been given in a product, and we make it better. And we should be able to do the same for ourselves. We are our best product as well, and we can drive that, especially in this industry in Calgary where tech is booming. You can own that piece. You don't have to follow the ladder or the typical kind of pathway that you hear about, Google PMs and Facebook PMs, but you just need someone to guide you. And that's been what's hit home really, really well for me.
Awesome. Renee, I'm not sure if you've got a question. I've got loads. I mean, I could go on all day.
Oh my
Feel
God.
yours.
I want to do another, and to the audience, this is Ask Us Anything. So please start sharing your questions, whether it's for Charlé, her journey in product management, for Christa or I, we would love to help answer your questions. Whether you want to know how to build a better product, progress in your career, maybe you're an entrepreneur looking to bring the product acumen to your organization and you want to know where to start. We are here. So just another shout out to give us your questions. And Charlé, I'm so curious just hearing your story. It's so inspiring. The thread throughout really is that empowerment and product management. You're so right. It is really hard because our job is to fail. And how do you keep the confidence when your job is to fail? It's really hard. So how do you keep that, now that you've found that confidence again, how do you keep that confidence in the face of failure?
I think the confidence comes in knowing that you should be failing. It's not I am doing a bad job when I'm failing. It's that this is really, really hard. Execs fail all the time. I mean, there are execs that don't take salaries for products that don't work, right? So that piece, if you can own that and say, okay, this failed. Why did it fail? What is the value that I can bring? What did I miss? That is your job. Your job is to figure out what the best situation is or solution is with what you've been given. So if you come into product management thinking I should never fail, you'll never be a good product manager. You have to fail, and you have to fail properly. I actually messaged my director yesterday, and I was like, You burn and you learn. Like you have to, right? Like you have to approach it that way, or else you're never going to improve. Um, yeah,
But I've never heard that before. You burn and you learn.
I know. I came up with it yesterday, and I was like, it sounds a bit intense, but
It's like kind of fits. Like that's real. Yeah. Oh my goodness. We've got a great question here. And I mean, Charlé, you tackled this week. So let's talk about conflicting opinions and various demands that come through a team and how you can't do it all. And I know this one hits really close to home to you this week. So do you want to walk us through how you approach this particular product learning this week, even in your own job?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, this is very good for right now. But and I see more questions coming in, so I'll keep it short. But with situations when you have varying demands from stakeholders and you can't do it all, it's always going to happen. It's going to happen continuously, especially if you have a product that hits home in the market really, really well, right? Because you have so much potential. They see numbers, they see money, they see revenue, but you see jobs that can work. You see problems that can be solved. So in this situation, honestly, I would say out of respect for the execs as well, understand that their intention is to grow this, but they're just sometimes they're hot headed and sometimes, they move quick and you have to keep up with it. But I would say owning the confidence that you know the product well and saying, I hear you. I agree that we need to do this. Let's think about the bigger picture. How are we going to approach this? And Tacit Edge does this very well. We have a vision and strategy concept of how you can kind of rein everything in, give them the visual that they need of saying, okay, this is how I would group this out. Yes, your opportunity is right. Everyone is right in a company. Everyone's opportunity is there. Everyone's opinion is needed, and everyone sees value. It's just, what do we do now? What do we do next? And what do we do later? And Tacit Edge has helped kind of bring that framework in. So highly encourage that piece because it's helped me this week quite a lot with sitting down with the execs and saying, okay, this is what I would do. I'm actually having a meeting on Monday with one of my execs to run them through this, but it really works. It just positions it well, and it still shows them the respect, right? Because they are right, and you have to recognize that. So
I
Haley,
love that. Yeah.
I yeah, there that you're
Yeah.
so I love that idea that you're all right because it's true. We all have different views of the situation and we can only do one or two things. So
Mhm.
how do we choose from like hundreds of good ideas? And I think you nailed it. And just thinking of your confidence too. Often when we're the product people, we have the best. We're often at the center of that. So knowing that you you're likely to have the best information to hopefully give you that confidence to say, okay, you're all right, but I think this is the most right because I have this information. Thank you,
totally.
Shirley. For sure.
And what information do we need to surface as a group that needs to be shared so that we can understand everyone's unique perspectives? I think what's really important, especially in a startup environment, is that the founders can't always share with you all the information that they know that makes them right. And that puts you in a pretty tough spot because you're having to make a decision that maybe you don't agree with or the team doesn't agree with, but you can't know all that information. Right. So early days, there's a lot of really confidential stuff that has to happen that the founders can't necessarily share with you, but you need to seek to understand and have empathy for that process and just, again, sit them down and ask, like, from your perspective, what is the most amount of information that you could give me around this so that we can make the next right choice for the product? And so, in various sizes of the companies, this can look very different, right? If you're in an enterprise organization, you may have even less transparency around why this matters. So it's really important for us to stay close to the business objective that your organization is trying to achieve so that you can hold them close to that one business goal that they're trying to achieve. And how might product help us get there? But how does it fit into the bigger picture of the business? This is something in every size of the organization. You're going to be going up and down this ladder every day. This is the job. Because again, if it was easy, we wouldn't have this ask me anything session and we definitely wouldn't have a company or coaching or all these things. So just know you're not alone in this one. And it's a great one to have multiple tactics. Thanks for all that.
I love this question too from Margaret. How do you know when you failed? Is there an aha moment that you come to?
That's a hard one. You know what? Honestly, product management has so many facets as well. It's not just failing in a product. I think there are other ways in which you can fail, right? Like, for example, with the stakeholders piece too. Sometimes you have to be a good people manager in the moment. Sometimes you have to be a good problem solver. Sometimes you have to be a good project manager. And sometimes you have to organize a whole bunch of, different types of people into one room, make a situation very clear. So I look at it from, if I handle a situation this way, my scrum meetings in the morning or my refinements, how can I make it better? I don't think it's more of a, I have failed, I've done so terribly. It's, I haven't done this as great as I probably could have. How could I have done it better? And I think that's key as well, because it's more flipping the perspective with saying I can always improve. Um, and kind of leading in that direction. How can I show more empathy? How can I be more kind to my teams? I mean, I have failed often where, I leave a meeting and I realize, oh, an engineering is padding a story estimate. I pick up on small things like that. And I'm like, is that because they feel like if maybe I'm pushing them too hard to finish things too quickly? It's small little intuitions like that where it's like you start picking up on things in your day to day. And I think it's more being very self-aware of saying, okay, me as a person, I'm not perfect, right? I'm here to lead all these people and I'm here to manage this product, but I cannot possibly do well at every single thing. There's no way. Um, Even with my execs, right? When I communicate with them, it's, did I bring myself through in this conversation showing I'm confident in what I'm doing? And this is kind of where we're taking things. Like, did I approach it that way or did I confuse them? Have they left that meeting more confused than the meeting even started? Small things like that matter a lot. And then ultimately, it shows how good of a product manager you are in the long run, right? And how good of a product you end up building. So, aha moment, I would say self-awareness daily in everything. Learn, like listen from other PMs, try and figure out how you can do things better. And sometimes you think you've done a good job and 3 months later you're like, oh, actually I did a terrible job. Um, so that's how I would approach it. I don't know if that helps, but
Oh, I agree. I love when you said like that little intuition of like, oh, there's some padding here. This is going on. I think that speaks so much again to that confidence in your own skills. And sometimes the most important, one of the most important facets of a product manager is being like, what is that? What? There's something in here. Like, what is that? What's going on? And sometimes it is like, yes, this is failing or this is happening. For me personally, sometimes there's been some real aha moments. I find we just get like super laser focused on the weeds and then we're like not looking around. Sometimes I find for me personally, that's where I look around, I'm like, oh wait, there's a major failure going on here. There's a major
yeah,
opportunity that's being missed or like, and then other than that, it's like little things. So it's like all of the above. Failure comes in so many different shapes and sizes and shapes and
yeah,
feelings. Oh,
And I'm muted. Sorry. With our experience too over time, the more mature we are in our roles, that intuition that we are headed towards failure is even more tuned. And I would say, like, even early days in my career, I wouldn't necessarily feel the failure coming because I'm so busy in the doing that I'm not observing the other factors that are going on around me. But then as my career progressed and I had more of a line of sight of more things that were outside of my role, more conversations, more interactions with more people, and just more information coming in about what's happening, I found that intuition around that, knowing that something's off the rails and we got to look into what that might be, grows. Right. So the key, I think, in product management is that it's just like anything that you do. The more that you do it, the more years you're at it, the more your spidey senses around the things that you haven't considered that lead to failure become more tuned. And then the trick is, how do you trust yourself enough to follow those instincts? How do you sit and hold space and listen to them and say, Krista, okay, like what on the inside here is really bothering me about this thing? Right, Renee? I know one of your favorite stories about failure is like one you knew was coming, But it's like, but we weren't listening. And so it's the same for me. Like, what did I not consider? And what can I learn from this that can help me show up even better the next time around? So I think the aha moments are the self awareness piece that you take away, that you're like, wow, I really learned something big. And we don't grow when we win, right? We only grow when we fail. And that growth, when we enlarge even more in our confidence and our skills, helps us just show up even better and better and better in every situation as we progress in our careers.
Yeah.
Great
And
question.
I would also add to that as well, just as you were saying, Chris, and not to harp on too long, but also allow yourself the opportunity to be told when you failed as well. And I think that's important too. If you have a really strong network of people that you trust, and I have a few as well. And again, Tacit Edge has brought so much in that too, where I can lean on people and say, did I did I make a mistake here? Or in this situation, it looks perfect to me. What would you have done differently? I think that is really important as well, because sometimes we become so in tune with us just doing a great job, and people are like, oh, well done, you're so self-aware, congratulations. But sometimes we need the relationships around us, to be able to feel confident enough and comfortable enough to say, actually, I feel like in this situation you could have done X differently. And actually saying that, Krista has a really, really good example in the Tacit Edge program of how she wasn't realizing that in a situation, she could have shown up a little differently. And it speaks so many words when you approach a situation and say, I would like to book 15 minutes with you. I feel like maybe you have some feedback for me. What is it that I could have done better? I think that's important as well, especially with our engineers. Engineers are quiet, they're so shy. They just want to get the job done, they want to do a good job. You have to often kind of try them a little bit to give you feedback, and so much comes from it. So I've done that a little bit as well in the past too. I'll meet with an engineer for 15 minutes and say, what do you think? What can I improve? And it opens a door that they might not have known was there. And I think that's important.
All right.
Charlé. So important that asking for, seeking out failure in a way by asking for feedback. It's so important, especially here in Canada. I'm sure all over the world, but I'm sure especially in Canada, where we're a little bit less forthcoming, I think, with our feedback. I'm curious, really, just based on your experiences, you're not originally from Canada. Do you see a difference there in, would you mind sharing
Oh,
with
yeah.
everyone?
Super different. Canadians are so nice. They're so nice. I'm South African. I can actually be very intense. And I know that about my character. I can come across very, very hard and very upfront and not think twice about it. But it's something that I thought, maybe I need to completely change the way I approach situations. But actually, I can be upfront about asking, hey, have I failed? And I think that's a good way to kind of meet in the middle. You don't have to completely change the way you work. Like if you've ever worked with people from Sweden or Switzerland or Europe, you'll know sometimes they can have board meetings where you sit there and no one says anything, not a word. It's dead silent. And that's just their culture and that's how they work. Americans can be incredibly offensive. Sometimes they can. And that's just how they give feedback, right? So you have to kind of be good at understanding what is the feedback and what is this person's position. And I think that speaks to how you manage and work with people, right? It's like when you're kind of sifting for gold, you kind of take little gold nuggets out of the information that was given to you. And that's important. And you need to give people space to do the same. And I think when you meet at that place, regardless of how they take or give feedback, they feel comfortable with doing it in whatever way they know is good. So I think that's important. And yes, Canadians are very nice. It's very difficult to get feedback from them. So sometimes things will pop up and you're like, I had no idea. Why didn't you tell me? And they're like, oh, well, I didn't feel comfortable telling you. And you need to be aware of that ahead of time to not let the situation get to the point where that's how that person feels. So yeah, I think that speaks to that kind of people skills piece of being a product manager, but not being a direct manager.
Yeah, and so much of that leading through influence, right? And how we have to have outcomes happen where teams are not reporting to us directly. And the magic behind influencing and inspiring people towards work and getting it done is, again, all the things that are not in the job description, right? Like it's all very tactical. And then the how we operate is one of the biggest differences between us being successful, having satisfying jobs, and coming home and feeling really empowered instead of coming home feeling deflated and overwhelmed. And I think that really speaks to the magic of really being self-aware and understanding the skills you need to navigate those situations and how to show up in those conversations the best way you can. So awesome. Such great discussion here today.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
yes. I got 3 more questions. And then at the end, stick around because we will have, actually, I might just share in the comments right now. If you like this discussion here and you want to learn more, you're interested in getting involved, we're going to answer a few more questions still. But I will be sharing a comment here in the LinkedIn, because we would love folks that are here attending this Ask Us Anything. Like you're the folks that are out there saying, "Hey, you believe that you can improve, you can get better. You're interested in learning and pushing yourself and trying new things." If you want to continue doing that with us, we do have enrollment for our product management professional course coming up. It starts on November 7th. If you'd like to join, please join us. I'm going to share a comment here. So this comment on the LinkedIn Live, you should be able to see a link and a discount code to join us. And if you have any questions, reach out to us. DM Krista or I. Krista or me, we would love to talk to you about the program. And now with that, I'll throw back to Charlé. Sarah asks, "Hey, you mentioned you listen to some podcasts. Do you have some favorites?"
I do have some favorites. But I will say actually, well, let me say my favorites. I listen to Lenny's podcast a lot. It's very interesting. He interviews a lot of very senior execs, VPs in Meta, Google, Facebook, Calendly. It's very interesting hearing the stories of the different product pieces. And then I do listen to a lot of Marty Kagan's talks. I do listen to Teresa Torres as well. But I will say, like, the danger of listening to podcasts where you're interviewing execs and people that have built massive, massive companies, that's not the reality of product management all the time, right? Like, you need people in communities like in Calgary, like our Tech Thursdays and Tacit Edges programs, and all the different kind of connections that you have within where Calgary is at to help you with your product management career at this phase. Because sometimes you hear these amazing stories about, how they took a company from zero to unicorn status. And you might never do that in your product management career. So you might never even need those skills. A lot of product managers want to go work for Google and they want to go work for Facebook. But there are skills that those managers have that if they were put in a tech startup or in a company that had Series B investments, that kind of phase support, that they wouldn't be able to apply those skills because it's just too process driven. So it's really important to know where you're at as a PM and know what you need at that point in time. And I think that, like, from Tacit Edge in the group, that's what I was missing as well, is this very hands-on, very realistic perspective of where I'm at, because I might never be, a PM at Facebook that, owns one whole vertical of a product. But what I am now is a product manager in a tech company that has Series B funding that, manages a vertical in one area. And we have no idea what our ICP is sometimes. It shifts all the time, right? So what do I do with that? Like, the advice that I get from those podcasts is wonderful and it's phenomenal. And I do lean on it heavily because I do need to know what's out there. But like the real tangible day to day, I don't get from that. And so I need to diversify as well. So I'm always looking for resources too, and I'm scouring LinkedIn as well. But it's really powerful when you have those human connections in the area that you're in, because there are experiences that are very real to you as well.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. We find I found it like listening to podcasts in like other industries, sometimes like coaching podcasts, entrepreneurship podcasts, or some of the podcasts are. You're right. Like, there's only so many people that are working at these large enterprises where they're owning like a small part of a product that's already working. Um, or they're launching a new product where there's already, like you said, like that ideal customer is already fleshed out. Well, if you don't have that, where do you go? Um,
And what if your career is in progress too, right? Like, how do we bring voice and share spaces with folks that are just starting out or intermediate and are reaching for like a group product manager role? I feel like there is the product manager on TikTok that is like this, and we're like congratulating or encouraging them to keep in the game. And then there's podcasts where it's like, we made it, here's all the life lessons in this like really nicely packaged bunch of stories that I've got for you. And then it's like, well, what about product management for me and where I am in my career? That was so well spoken about. Like, it is a gap, and I'm glad that we're here to bring some of that reality to it. It's like the right size advice, the right size coaching, the right size mentorship for where you are in your career, knowing it's not one size fits all, and where can you belong. And I think that's really what we all want. We all want to find a podcast where we can hear ourselves and see our problems and some solutions and some ideas around what might work and what might not. I think there's so much space for so many new voices to emerge. So yeah, we're always looking for more. So awesome. Okay.
Another question. So, what are your thoughts on working with senior leaders and moving them to the right option direction when they might be more distant from the problem? Oh, good
It's a
question.
good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Um, it's not always about moving them to the right opinion or direction. Is I would say be humble about it too, right? Like there's a place in product where this is not your company and you didn't start it. So sometimes they know more than you do, but sometimes there's so much friction and constant things happening that you tend to kind of overlook that piece. But sometimes you are right. And I think the only way you can ever bring a leader to an opinion or a direction when they are distant from the problem is if you are approaching it from a place of humility. You can't come in hot-headed and say, "Oh, I know what's better," because honestly, who are you? And I think that's really important. That humility piece, when you're working with leaders, is something that can speak volumes, but a confidence in your humility too. To say, "Look, like you might be right. Let's approach this and see if we take this view on it and things work out better." Because you could fail, you could fail ethically and you could be wrong. And I think that humility protects you too. Because as PMs, our job is not to fight against the grain. Our job is not to constantly kick down doors. Our job is to solve problems. And our job is to do it well and to love people and to work well with what we've been given. And I think that that's really, really key because it's very difficult as well to grow in your career if you don't have that humility piece because you'll constantly be met with knockdowns as well. Um, and I think it's just a skill that you need to fine tune. It's a skill where it's like, how do I be humble about my opinion, but also stand firm in my position in this? And I think there's power in that too, where sometimes execs come to you and they say, oh, and Christa was really, really great, and Renee as well at helping me manage this piece, especially for me as a woman, right? Like sometimes I come in and I feel very vulnerable and I feel, too soft spoken to stand my ground. But there is power in the fact that I do have humility, right? Whereas it could be the opposite. So I think the humility piece is a superpower that you need to keep, but growing that confidence piece, it's only the humility that will kind of pave the way for you to have that respect from leadership, which is what you need. It's not always about, me growing my career and me moving up. Like there are things that we can use with where we're at right now to say, do I really need a raise or a promotion? Or are there things that I can latch on right now, like bringing direction in my leadership? That's a skill that I can hone in on that I wouldn't have if I was in a different role. And I think that's really, really important. So that's my perspective on it. But again, like I also need to work on being more confident sometimes too. Um, which is a piece of my personality that I just need to kind of work on in the culture and background and everything. But humility is key.
Can we just double down on something you shared there that was a real nugget? It's not my job to constantly be going against the grain. It's my job to solve problems for you. Charlé, had somebody said that to me 10 years ago, I would have been like, because honestly, for a really long time in my career, I actually thought that going against the grain was it, right? That was the place of product to be questioning everything and to be pushing for more information, to like really be obviously like in some environments, always pushing back to try and maintain focus. Right? We're just clinging for focus with our teams with every breath of product management expertise that we have, right? And
Yeah.
keeping people like on a thing so that we can get far enough that we can solve it just enough so that we don't lose focus and, have to leave it in such a bad state before we grab the next thing. And just that concept of my job is not to go against the grain all the time. I feel like there's a whole generation of product managers out there right now that would have just been like, oh my God, what? Right? Like, I could see this another way. So thank you for that. That was awesome. Renee, I'm not sure if you have any thoughts
Yeah.
on that, but that was a real nugget for me.
No, sometimes when the answer is right, you just keep the answer. Thank you, Shirley. So this is our last question. So now, how do you align a product's value derived from user interviews, positioning exercises, etc., with what motivates the stakeholders to get their buy-in? If sales is motivated by revenue, client success by retention, is there an effective way to translate a product's value for those teams?
Yeah, this is a really, really good question because it's tough. And honestly, like I face this daily. Um, Again, I love people, but sometimes like there's just so much coming at you from all different directions, right? I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, I had sales say to me, "We need to fix this one thing because this is our deal relies on it." And I did, and I got my engineers to fix it, and I failed. I made a mistake. I should have said not no, but I did. I fixed it, and we lost the deal. And it's like that situation was so heated and so intense. So sometimes it's good to pause and to look at what is the intention behind this ask. This intention is coming from a place of desperation and we need it now. But I think the power that we bring in as product managers is that we see past that noise. And we have to constantly remind ourselves to see past that noise. The reason why sales hits their goals is because we solve a good problem. The reason why client success has retention is because we're solving a problem. And the reason why stakeholders want to buy in is because we solve a problem that has value. And so if you can kind of put yourself back to a North Star to say, what am I doing now that will solve a good problem? And is this little tiny problem that they're experiencing, does it play into the bigger problem that I'm trying to solve? And just reminding them, like, yes, you have a problem. And I think this is important as well. Don't brush people off because people, all those different areas in companies, like they're heated in their day to day. And I understand it, right? They have clients screaming at them. They have prospects that are saying, oh, we're looking at these other competitors. They have a lot going on as well. But if we can look past it and understand the perspective that they're coming from, that's what's heating the ask, that's important. And then coming back and saying, I hear you and you are right. We do need to fix this. But as a company, all aligned together towards one goal, this is what we're driving towards. And I think in companies that do things very well in product, when they are all aligned on the value the product brings as a whole and the problems we solve, the features and the small requests, they start seeing together in a kind of united way that, okay, I understand. I have the power to say no to this because honestly, in the bigger vision, it doesn't really align. But sometimes your company is not at that place and you just have to take the knocks and you have to say, I get it. I hear you and I'm sorry. We can't deliver on this right now. We will work on it when we can, but this is our vision. And it's very difficult when you have to constantly be the voice that's encouraging, but also realigning. Um, Honestly, just practice and it tells the tale tells after you've done it a couple of times, right? Then stakeholders will get buy-in when they start seeing that you are committed to driving one value. when you're all over the place and blown in the wind back and forth, you're just being a yes person. And that is not your job. Your job is not to solve everyone's problem. Your job is to solve the one problem that your product does very, very well, and to be very aligned and very confident in it. And I think that's really important. Always see the human aspect behind these things, because if you can meet them at a human level, often your reason for why you can't do this now is taken a lot better. And again, it's just proven over time, and that's what the stakeholders look for too. So it's tough because it varies by company, but remember the human element, and then just keep realigning everyone to what your product as well.
Thank you, Charlé. Talk about, mic drop. So, that was our last question. Thank you, Charlé. Is there anything else you want to, last words you'd like to leave us with, Charlé?
Piece of advice for every product manager out there.
Yeah. No, just a massive thank you, I think, to Christa and Renee and the team and the community and everything that you've built in Calgary. It's really inspiring, and it's nice to feel that you have people around you that are going through the same things, again, at your level, right? We hear all these success stories. We have all these, and again, that's also why product managers think they have to go against the grain, because all the success stories are built on product managers that have gone against the grain. Mm-hmm. But that's the tiny 1% that you see. It's not the whole picture. And it's not the reality of your day-to-day. That is not your job. Those are very key success stories. And it's nice to have people around you where they understand what it is to get their hands dirty and to constantly feel, imposter syndrome. And am I even doing this right? And I think that that's really important, right? Because for you to love your job and come to work every day and feel really inspired, you need that backup and you need that community. So a big thank you to what you're doing. And what you're bringing to Calgary. I think it speaks for just so much, and we're very grateful.
We're grateful. We love the community here. We love the product community. The people that are willing, again, to put themselves out there, try hard, fail, learn, solve problems for people. We love this community. Thank you, Charlé, for joining us.
Yeah, this was awesome.
Thank you, everyone, joining us online, submitting your questions. We just love these. It was such a blast seeing some familiar, some new faces. Reach out. We're here. Got some programs coming up. If you have any questions about them, reach out. And then again, we got a discount code for the folks that came to this session, because you're the ones who are putting yourselves out there. So reach out. Don't be a stranger. And we will see you next time.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, rate and review this podcast, and you might find your review in a future episode. Please subscribe to Product for Humans wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. To get more information about Product for Humans and our content, please visit our website at tacit-edge.com, tacit-edge.com. We'll see you next time. Okay? Should we do it one more time?
Sweet. Yeah, let's do it.